As you know, we all have problems on set and in the writer's room. Can you guys give us an example of a big problem you had on a show and how you worked your way out of it? Michelle, you said something to me the other day that I'm actually writing down and putting in my office about the nature of problems. Could you talk to the audience about that?
Well, we were talking on the phone and saying that problems come in two varieties, those you can produce your way out of and those you can only write your way out of. For example, a couple seasons ago, we had an episode built. There was a recurring character. He was heavily in the episode. And then we found out 2 days before we filmed that, in fact, we didn't have him for the 8 days that we thought he had him for. He was doing a one-man show in Washington State, and we had him for 1 day. And he was going to be in a church, and we didn't have the church on the 1 day that he was, so then and we found out 48 hours before it started filming.
What was that?
That was when, yeah. and so then and then it's what do you do? And Robert came up with the great idea of, okay, suddenly he's not in a church, he's in a food kitchen, and we don't have a food kitchen, so, it's the exterior door with a sign over it. And, suddenly it's one scene or 3 scenes rather than many days worth.
Right. It's a difficult show for us because we hold on to characters and try to keep putting them in episodes. And so one of the nightmares of our show is a scheduling nightmare. Most of our problems are scheduling. We have a very sympathetic network with us. So we only have a few problems with the network. Most of our problems are internal about actor schedules. Which are a nightmare.
Anyone else?
Well, speaking of actor schedules, on the last season of Nurse Jackie, we had this actor, Michael Esper, who's just wonderful. And he was in Sting's play. And we had him in 3 episodes, and then he got Sting's play, and he had an out for it. And so we figured out a way to shoot his pieces of 3 episodes, all in 1 day with a B unit while we're shooting our A unit, and we changed the location and we put it in a parking garage so we could make it night, and played out his 3 episodes. Fortunately, they were written. And then what was great was then, a couple of weeks later, we were getting notes from Gary Levine on the script, and can you? I had a little problem with the motivation in this scene, and I had to say, we already shot it.
Oops.
I think it's amazing that any of it gets done. It's just like, but I've learned that, and I just sort of went through this right now, sort of throwing out a script, that when you sort of think that your instincts feel like something's not going to work, especially at a script stage, just like try to get in there sooner than later to sort of like either just throw it out and start from scratch. I feel like we all want to hold on to things and try to say, okay, this is going to work, but sometimes, they just don't. And we just had we were so happy that we had so many outlines and episodes written, and there was one outline that some writers had written, and I was behind and kept rewriting, and finally just decided, you know what, throw it away, start from scratch, and just say it's we're not going to try to make it work because it's better just to sort of start with a clean page. And so those are tough. I mean, I kind of feel like for me, every show, every season of a show I've done, there's always like, I feel like there's one script that just gets tossed, and it just sort of like, you hate it because you hate throwing away a script, but sometimes you just do. And
there's an awful phrase for it, which is killing your baby.
Oh.
Yeah. We had on the 4th year of Dexter, the Lithgow year, the Thanksgiving episode, which became a pretty famous episode. But the Friday before we were going to start shooting on Tuesday, and it had been approved in story and been approved in outline, been approved in first draft, and then Greenblatt calls on Friday night, who then was president of Showtime, and says, guys, and when I get a call from a network president, I bring in all my writers into the room, and we all sit around the conference call, telephone, so that I don't have to translate what happened, and everybody has an opinion. And so everybody's sitting around in my office, and Greenblatt's saying, this just has to be better. and it needs to be rougher and edgier and crazier, and it just feels a little linear and all of this stuff. And we're listening and listening, and in my gut, I knew he was right. And then, and we're going to be shooting in 3 days, and get off the phone, and one of the non-writers in the room says, "What do we do? Do we shut down?" I said, "No, we go down the hall." And down the hall means you go to the writing room. And we sat in there and maybe stayed till 10 o'clock that evening and came up with ways of taking the existing scenes and making them rougher and adding a scene and all of this. And then everybody came in on Saturday. We worked on normal days. Kind of fun sometimes when everybody's running up and down the hall like the front page, and then everything ends up on in our computer just to, if nothing else, make it all one script. And then the senior staff came in on. Senior staff, supervising producer and above, came in on Sunday, and we worked maybe 4 hours and turned the script in Sunday night. And Greenblatt says it's called Monday morning. Says it's Tennessee Williams. It's amazing, and it became this incredible episode. And he was right.
Wow.
I'm thinking of a time when we just could not get on the same page with a director of an episode, which had really never happened to us before. And in a way, as a showrunner, you get used to everybody doing what you ask them to do, and then when suddenly that's not happening, you're confused. And it became very extreme in this case. So we said, well, we just got to talk to this person and sort of get him on board, and that didn't work. And then we said, well, we got to lay down the law, and that didn't work. And then it became sort of the personality test of what's happened to me and what's happened to us that I don't even know what to do with somebody who's not, doing what we want. And then sort of scene by scene, it just got worse and worse. And you're watching your baby die, or you think you're watching your baby die. Maybe you're not. Maybe you just think that. And it was just a strange and painful process, because again, when you're doing 13 episodes and you think of each one as this, supposed to be this perfect little, and there are always problems, and then you always have to fix them and this and that. But this felt like the whole episode was going down the drain, and you start thinking, well, we'll fix it in editing, But as the problems pile up and get more and more severe, you're thinking, we're not going to be able to fix this in editing. This is too much. And a lot of it was insoluble, and you just realize you're just going to construct something else. You're going to construct something else and find out what it is.
Did you only have him for one episode?
Yeah.
Because when that happened to me once, and I had the guy for 2 episodes, and we bought him out of the second episode.
You did, yeah. But well, when you're in the middle of an episode, it's pretty much, you can't really fire it.
Right,
I mean, it's not
right.
100% inconceivable, but it's pretty much close to inconceivable. So that problem didn't have an answer, really. We just ended up with the same thing that happened with an actor, obviously, where the actor is doing a very different performance than what you expected, and you have this whole idea of what the relationship is going to be between this actor and your main character, and it's just something else. It changes a whole arc of what you're doing.
But given all that, did the audience still like the episode when it aired? Was it like, made you feel...
Tell us which one we get. Which episode? Because then we'll know which one.
Exactly.
I can only answer that by, the 2,000 people on Twitter. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know.
Anyone else? Barbara, did you have a?
Oh, well, sorry, what was
We were talking about problems and an example of a big problem you had on a show and the way you worked out of it.
Gosh, we haven't had any. I mean,
Not a
you
whole
would know
lot.
as well.
Sebastian.
Oh,
baby.
yes. Right. We have babies and things like that happening.
Not too much.
Sometimes we'll write stuff in. We had an actor who was having a baby. We sort of wrote that into the character's life. And yes, go.
Tell about Madeline. It's 45 minutes. Shut down production.
Is that like
You
declassified
just can't say,
now?
it's declassified, but you can't say why. You just can't say why.
You're not the only one in the CIA. No, we did an episode with Madeline Albright, the second episode of the season, and so we were about to shoot with her, and she had to go take a phone call. And it was taking a lot of time, like 20, 30 minutes, time was ticking by. But she'd been called to an important phone call, and so we, didn't want to ask. And finally, we sort of
but you were eavesdropping, though. I think that's how we mainly found out. We found out that she had had to take a call from John Kerry because it was on the eve of the Iranian nuclear agreement, and all of the former secretaries of state had been called to be briefed about this deal coming out. And
But you're doing a television show.
I know. Exactly. Come on now. And it might rain. We're losing the lights.
Exactly. We gotta go.
And, but who was on the phone call? It was Kerry. It was Kissinger. It was Hillary Clinton, Condi Rice, all of the former secretaries of state.
This is an episode idea, though.
It was, yes, exactly. It was a little hard for us to say, Ms. Albright, can you please? We've been waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
for a while.
We had to roll with that one.
Yeah,
but